Recording will be available on our YouTube channel afterwards. I will invite you to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and after the pledge, I'll ask you to remain standing for a moment of silence for the 16-year-old girl from Rainham who died in a car accident. Although not a student in our district, we recognize her as a member of our community. Our heartfelt condolences go out to her family. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would like to introduce our school committee members and administration in attendance this evening. On my left, I have Mr. Diamarino, Mrs. Martelli, Mrs. Conrad Labarento, Mr. Powers, the acting superintendent. On my right, I have Rohan Sekri, who is the co-chair of the Student Advisory Council, Mr. Fitzgibbons, Mrs. King, Mr. Dolan, Mr. Marrera, and I am Lillian Holbrook, chair. We also have in attendance with us this evening Ms. Liz Berry, Miss Kathy Macedo, Miss Judy McDougall, and other members of the admin team are also in attendance. Matt Tucker from BTV is also with us. Next on our agenda is correspondence and recognition. Community emails and correspondences have each month. I will continue to report on emails and correspondences from members of each school community. This month, the school committee received email topics ranging in receipt of 3 emails from parents concerned with the condition of the Bridgewater Middle School. I also received 3 emails from community members for a request for public records and information. I sent along the link for the form. One of the 2 community members also provided feedback regarding the district. I also received an inquiry from the Taunton Gazette. Additionally, I was CC'd on a correspondence to Ms. Hunt from Attorney Emerson, the school district's attorney. The school committee received a complaint from Ms. Hunt on April 27th, 2022. There were 2 parts to the complaint. The school committee reported our findings on one of the 2 allegations at our regular scheduled meeting on July 27th, 2022. The second allegation was whether the use of public resources by a public employee for political activity was in violation of the state ethics laws. At the school committee's direction, Mr. Emerson submitted a complaint with the State Ethics Board for their review. The correspondence sent by Attorney Emerson informed the school committee and Ms. Hunt that the Massachusetts Ethics Commission had determined that this matter does not warrant further action and that neither party was in ethics violation. So therefore, the matter is considered closed. An email was also received asking questions related to the curriculum review cycle, and I directed the community member to Mr. Powers. I am also in a receipt of an email from a community member outlining their concerns of approving the sale of recreational marijuana in the community. A video was also asked to be shared with the committee on how marijuana normalization has impacted communities in legalized states. Thank you to Mrs. King for sending a letter to the grounds maintenance and custodian staff recognizing all that they do for our students, staff, and families every day. To reiterate what Mrs. King said so eloquently, they work behind the scenes to keep our schools safe, clean, and running efficiently by cleaning, fixing, and replacing equipment, maintaining the grounds and fields, and much more. They are truly a central part of our team, and we are so grateful for all of our grounds, maintenance, and custodian staff. Next on, we have a presentation of supplies to GEMS. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the school committee. We actually have several students in our audience tonight that we're excited to recognize this evening. And I'm excited to first recognize Miss Lindsay O'Donnell to start. Lindsay, if you want to come down for a minute. Lindsay is a 9th grade student here at Bridgewater Rainham. Lindsay and her fellow Girl Scout Troop 66133, make sure I got that right, completed a Silver Award project. Lindsay and her troop wanted to ensure that all of our Mitchell students and staff had all the supplies that they needed. So Lindsay sent out a survey to the staff asking them what they could use in their classrooms, and she focused on the top 10 most requested items. And so Lindsay and her troop went out and collected all those items and presented that to the Mitchell staff. So we're super excited. I want to personally thank you on behalf of the Mitchell School and all the students and staff for taking that project on. And I don't know if you would like to say a few words. You seem like you have something prepared. Perfect. I love it. I'll turn the mic over to you, Lindsay.
Hi, my name is Lindsay O'Donnell, and I'm a Girl Scout from Troop 66133. Over the past 2 years, I have been collecting school supplies for the local Mitchell Elementary School. I have been working towards my Silver Award project, which is the highest award a Girl Scout cadet can earn. The reason why I chose this project is to help students who can't afford or can't get the necessary supplies they need for any class or project, and to help teachers spend less. Some teachers put in a lot of hard work to go out and buy stuff, spending their own money to help students out with getting them supplies. I have spent the last 2 years reaching out and receiving donations, selling Girl Scout cookies to raise funds. I asked the teachers what their top needs were and created a top 10 list of the need items. I collected donations through pages which were shared via Facebook, and they were shared on town pages and my mom's personal page. I created an Amazon wish list that anyone could purchase from, and they get sent to me. And I collected money donations at Girl Scout cookie booths. I'm excited to take the final step in my project to present it to the school committee and to delivering to the Mitchell Elementary School. My hope is that I have brought awareness to the need of helping students and teachers by supplying the necessary materials needed and in the schools, and to motivate them if they are able. The top 10 items were paper towels, which overall we collected 81 paper towel rolls, 68 dry erase markers, and then we collected 135 folders, 1,150 markers, and then 84 permanent markers, $2,482 crayons, 450 glue sticks, and 187 scissors, 45 sanitizing wipes, and 1,431 pencils. The other donations we also received were 13 4-ounce glue bottles, 84 pink pearl erasers, 1,296 pencil topper erasers, 1,200 paper clips, 60 binder clips, 10 rulers, 504 colored pencils, 196 highlighters, 59 tissue boxes, 25 hand soap bottles, 12 magic erasers, 20 notebooks, and 5 binders.
Great job, Lindsay. We're very proud of you. Great job. Next, we actually have two of our 5th grade students here this evening, or I hope they're here this evening. We taught Municipal Lighting Plant, TMLP, our electricity provider in the town of Rainham, in honor of their 125th birthday, conducted a calendar contest focusing on energy awareness. And students were asked to create a picture depicting energy awareness, and it was a contest open to students in Taunton, Berkeley, and Rainham. And this happened in 4th grade, so this actually happened when the students were at La Liberty in the spring. So we had 2 students chosen for the calendar, and I actually have the calendar up there, Madam Chair. I can actually pass it around, or if you want to pass it around. It's actually in the month of May and June. But I want to recognize Sean Murphy. He was chosen for his renewable energy picture for the month of May. And Kyla Flaherty was chosen for her picture of energy conservation for the month of June. Very proud of Sean and Kyla. Perfect. Soccer this evening, so that's all right. Very proud of him. And I know obviously Ms. Hargraves and Ms. Charette are as well. So that was a great contest, and we'll certainly have the calendar out if anyone from the audience wants to come see the pictures, but they did an amazing job for the month of May and June. Next, I want to recognize our Bridgewater Rainham Regional High School Marching Band. I had the honor and pleasure to attend a band competition, my first one ever, this past Saturday night, actually here at Bridgewater Rainham. It was a U.S. Bands regional competition. And I know several of the members of school committee were there and can certainly echo these sentiments. But there were 9 high schools altogether. They had high schools from the local area, as well as statewide. They had high schools from Connecticut, and I believe New York was the farthest one, up in the Syracuse area, I believe. And so each band had the opportunity to perform, multiple songs if they so choose. Everyone kind of seemed to perform a different amount, but obviously it was a phenomenal event. I can't thank the music boosters, all the parents that volunteered to really make that a special evening. Obviously, I think all of the bands did wonderful. I'm certainly partial to ours, so congratulations. In my mind, you were the winners. And I think everybody will echo that. But I would like to call down Miss Amanda Howland. Miss Howland and her team obviously direct our band, and they are second to none. You can see by the numbers, if anyone's been around for a while, our band numbers continue to grow every year, so we're so incredibly proud of our band, our marching band, and all the phenomenal things they do. But I know we also want to recognize the individual students that are here, as well as the collective band, and invite them down to shake the hands of the school committee member. So I was hoping Ms. Howland could, speak, if you would like to say anything, and then call the kids down.
Thank you so much, Mr. Powers. And thank you all for allowing us to be here to recognize these students. They're some of the hardest working students in this district. I don't know if any of you live nearby, but you can hear them practicing quite often. And even the custodians mentioned, they recognize how hard we work, and they've noticed over time, the music has changed a little bit. So when I started here in this district 8 years ago, I believe the marching band had 9 students in it, and I wasn't involved until about 4 years ago, and I just took over as director from Mrs. Sandra Medeiros, who worked so hard to build up that program. So she gets all the credit for what she handed over to me. And really, these students, they work so hard every week. I have excellent student leaders. Most of them are here tonight. Of course, many of them had to go and do their thing and maybe even sleep sometimes. But it was an incredible opportunity to host a U.S. Bands event. I really hope that we can do that again. This was a really great venue for it, having 1,600 seats on the home side alone, and welcoming so many other band students here, and for you guys to be able to see what some of the groups that we aspire to be like in some of the open class division groups. So thank you so much for allowing us to be here, and thank you for recognizing the hard work of these students.
Lindsay, I don't want you to miss out on the opportunity to shake the school committee members' hands. If you want to come down before they sit down and shake your hands,
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, if you're okay with it, I will, with your permission, move on to the personnel report.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. So, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, I would like to share with you our personnel actions for this past month. I do have a few staff members to recognize that are in the audience this evening. As we've shared with you over the last 6 weeks or so, we have added several new administrative team members, and I invited them here tonight to be recognized. So I wanted to start by recognizing our new admin team members and then get on to our overall hirings for the month. I'd first like to start with Ms. Kendra Rose. Ms. Kendra Rose is currently our Department Head of Social Emotional Learning. This is a new position for us in the district, and we're very, very excited to have this position. It was something that we had hoped to bring on board last year, but unfortunately we were not able to fill that. But Mr. Joe Velosa and I were committed again this year to try, and we were so thankful that we were able to get Ms. Rose on board. Ms. Rose actually is not new to the district. She is a school psychologist and has been with us for a number of years, but is new to this position. So again, I just want to recognize Ms. Rose and say thank you. Next is Ms. Natalie Sedarovitz. Ms. Sedarovitz is our new public relations assistant. She is new to the district. She has joined us this summer after working at an educational collaborative down in Pennsylvania, where she was in charge of social media and communications, and obviously she's assuming that role. And if you're following our Facebook pages or social media apps, you know what a wonderful job she's doing, and certainly our BR Buzz every week. So Ms. Sedarovitz is back there. I just want to say congratulations. Next is Ms. Amy Fernandez. Ms. Fernandez is one of our new special education administrators. She's working currently right now primarily with the Bridgewater side of the district, but certainly, as you know, our administrators go all over. But Ms. Fernandez joined us from the Global Learning Charter School in New Bedford, where she served as the Director of Special Education. So welcome and congratulations. Also here tonight is Ms. Jen Castanhina. Ms. Castanhina is also one of our new special education administrators, and she comes to Bridgewater Rainham after serving as the Director of Student Services for Fairhaven. So again, welcome. Ms. Laura Larkin is here this evening. Ms. Larkin is the new assistant principal at the Williams Intermediate School. She is joining Mr. Clark and the Williams staff after working for the Braintree Public Schools at the elementary level. So, Ms. Michelle Zachary is here this evening. She is the new assistant principal at the Mitchell Elementary School. She joined the Mitchell staff from the Brockton Public Schools, where she was an elementary school assistant principal. So welcome, Ms. And lastly, I'd like to introduce Ms. Elizabeth Barry. Ms. Barry is currently serving as the acting assistant superintendent. She was most recently the deputy superintendent in Brockton, where I had the honor and pleasure of working closely with her during my 10 years there. So, welcome. I think I missed anything. It was a lot. But also, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, during this past month, we did have 31 personnel actions that took place, including 17 new hires. We had 2 resignations, we had 2 separations, and we had 10 other personnel actions, including leaves, maternity leaves, and reassignments. I did want to just share with the committee that although we continue to hire every month, certainly sharing the high numbers, we still do have a number of open positions across the district that need to be filled. And the number is getting smaller, but we still have several open positions at Rainham Middle School, where we're currently trying to fill a proctor position, as well as an ESL teacher that would be shared with Liberty. At the high school, we have our ELA interventionist position that is open. At the Merrill Elementary, we have the interventionist position that is open, a speech and language pathologist. That would be split between Merrill and Rainham Middle School. We also have several ESP positions that need to be filled, one at the Williams, one that actually would be shared between Williams and BMS, 2 at RMS, 2 at pre-K, and 1 at the high school. And you'll see, obviously, through School Spring, we do have several leaves coming up, maternity leaves and other leaves that will be posted, but that is not considered, at this point to be one of those open positions because some of those leaves haven't taken place yet. But I wanted to share that as well. So I can't thank, our members of our human resources team and Mr. Jovelos, who has taken on some HR functions for trying to get as many staff members on board each month. So I just wanted to recognize their hard efforts. But Madam Chair, I do have one other personnel action item to share with you, members of the committee and the community. I have reluctantly accepted the resignation for the purposes of retirement for Ms. Kathy Macedo, our Director of Business Services. Ms. Macedo has served in her current role for the past 14 plus school years and over 35 years altogether in education. As you know, Ms. Macedo is probably the most vital member of our team. Obviously predated me, but I certainly know the stories of where this district was at one time, and under Ms. Macedo's leadership, she certainly has guided us into much better times, and we can't thank her for her efforts and all that she's done. I think a lot of times when we talk about business services, we think it's just numbers, and yes, that's a major part of Ms. Macedo's position. But when we're really going through the budget and talking about positions and materials that we need, Kathy always has the students at the end result, and she always asks, is this what the students need? Is this what our schools need? It's not just, these numbers, may add up or don't add up. It's always about the kids, and we can't thank Kathy enough for all she's done. So I just wanted to share.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Lindsay, I just want to say what a wonderful thought-out project you had, and on behalf of the school committee, I would like to thank you for thinking of our students and teachers and being sure that they have all the supplies that they need and activities. You certainly have demonstrated that you are a leader who is organized, determined, and dedicated to improving your community. The recipients of the TMLP Award, Sean Murphy and Kayla Flaherty, congratulations to the both of them for their artistic ability and their contributions to the TMLP 2023 calendar. What a wonderful honor, and we are proud of you. The marching band, myself, and other members of the school committee were in attendance at your competition on Saturday evening and thoroughly enjoyed your performance. As far as the new personnel, on behalf of the school committee, I would like to welcome all of you to the VR family, and we look forward to working with you. And Mr. Powers, as far as the opening positions, I did see in the Mars October 11th communication that came out that we are approximately 6 weeks into the 2023 school year, and our public schools have 1,597 paraprofessional or instructional aid positions opened, 502 education teacher positions, 515 other special education positions, speech and language pathologists, speech and language pathologist assistants, psychologists, adjustments counselors, etc., posted, which certainly qualifies us as a critical and concerning staffing shortage. So having read that, you know, I feel that BR is not alone in this matter.
I would agree.
So, and thank you for all you're doing for the hiring. And Mrs. Macedo, it's with deep gratitude that we acknowledge Mrs. Macedo for her dedicated years of service to the district. Kathy, your financial vision leaves the district in a stronger financial position than when you first arrived. And I can't thank you enough for that. And this concludes the correspondence and recognition. Next on the agenda is public comment. The school committee welcomes information, concerns, and opinions from those attending the meeting. In order to give those wishing an opportunity to speak, ensure compliance with open meeting law and other legal obligations, and avoid disruption to the meeting, the committee will not engage with the speaker or with one another in deliberation on comments as they are presented during public comment periods. As its discretion, the committee may schedule issues raised by a speaker for deliberation at a future meeting. If you would like a personal response, please email the committee or Mr. Powers directly following the meeting. The chair will now open public comment for a period of 12 minutes per policy BEDH and would ask anyone who wishes to speak to please approach the podium, provide your name and address, and respectfully ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. When your 3 minutes are up and you are still not finished, I will ask that you submit your thoughts or your script to our recording secretary, Mrs. McDougall, and she will distribute it to the committee for our review. So I will open public comment at 7:27. Anyone who would like to address the committee, please come to the podium. No one? Okay, going once, going twice. Public comment is closed at 7:28. Next on the agenda is an action item, consent agenda, and we have the approval of the minutes dated October 3rd, 2022, approval of general ledger warrants dated August 25th, 2022, September 8th, 2022, September 22nd, 2022, and October 6th, 2022. We also have acceptance of gifts and grants, a Title I grant for $569,725, a Title II grant award in the amount of $94,161, a Title III grant in the amount of $22,864, a Title IV grant in the amount of $41,440, and a Bridging Lives grant award for substance abuse training at $125,000 per year for 5 years. So I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Dolan, second by Mr. Fitzgibbons. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next on our agenda, we have educational reports and our student advisory report. Mrs. King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to introduce and welcome our new Student Advisory Council Advisor, Ms. Kathleen Curley. If you could just, thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Curley. Ms. Curley is our new school adjustment counselor at the high school, and she has taken over the Student Advisory Council advisor position as Ms. Kristen McCord has stepped down this year. Thank you so much to Ms. Curley for taking over this. This is one of our favorite parts of the meeting, is having the students read and let us know what is going on at the high school, work on their public speaking. And we know as a new staff member, it's a lot to take on a new advisory position. So thank you so much for doing it. Really appreciate it. We're very thankful to have you with us this year. I would also like to welcome our new Student Advisory Council this year. We have seniors Rohan Sekri and Emerson Kilsby, who will serve as co-chairs of the Student Advisory Council. We have juniors Danny Shavs and Nolan Barber, and sophomores Quinn Daly and Rachel Corey. We are very excited about this year. In addition to their reports from the high school, we also look forward to hopefully expanding their role this year. As the chair of the Student Advisory Council, or co-chairs as we will have this year, they are non-voting members of the school committee, and we look forward to their participation in as much capacity that they feel comfortable with. So if they are going to give their report, we welcome that and we're very excited for that. And we also hoping to look forward to expanding their role this year if they feel comfortable. As a non-voting member of the school committee, we're really hoping to include them more in our discussions, questions, concerns. As members of the school committee, we have certain perspectives as parents, as retired, as professionals, but we know the students are the heart of what we do here, so we really want to know what their questions and concerns and what their needs are as well. So we're really excited to have them in whatever capacity they feel comfortable with this year. With that, thank you again to Ms. Curley and for the council for being here tonight. And I would first like to recognize Rohan to come to the podium for his report.
Every inch of my step. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rohan Sekri. I'm a senior here at BR. Very sad. But I'm glad to be serving on the Student Advisory Board as now co-chair with Emerson Kilsby as our other co-chair. But outside of the Student Advisory Board, I'm the Public Relations Captain of TJ Squared. Very noticeable from last year. I'm talking about it probably every single meeting. The morning announcer of BR, so every morning the students will hear me speak every morning, so I hope I'm not like an earful. I'm the senior class historian, as well as the newly elected student council representative for the school, as well as a culture club member and any more roles to add to that. Last year I was able to formulate partnerships as well as bonds within our community, which continues to add on my lifelong service and involvement with the Bridgewater-Rainham Regional School District. I'm glad to be back and working with all of you this year. So for my talking points this month, I will be talking about the senior class. The senior class throughout the month of October, the senior class will be selling and providing BR Red Nation t-shirts, as well as agenda books and breast cancer awareness t-shirts and long sleeves. All proceeds currently helping the senior class fundraisers, and it will help the senior class fundraisers as well as any other future proms. We urge all BR families as well as any staff to purchase this new apparel as it will spread awareness to the community. So Emerson was not able to come here tonight, so I'll also speak on behalf of her and her club this year. And she was going to talk about reporting on Best Buddies. Best Buddies, if you don't know what that is the club that focuses on inclusion for students with special education. And every week the new members participate in fun activities such as ice cream socials, a board game day, and even have an end of the year friendship ball. Coming up later this month is an annual Best Buddies Friendship Walk, in which chapters from all over the country and all different cities, capital cities, to celebrate the support of inclusion for people with intellectual and development disabilities, which is also known as IDD. Funds raised as the Friendship Walks help move the Best Buddies mission forward by funding the local Best Buddies programs. Our chapters will be participating and walk in the city of Boston on October 22nd. And all looking forward to making fun and exciting memories with our new and old friends. And again, I'm very happy to be back on the board this year again. Now next, Danny.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dani Schaubs. I'm a junior here at BR, and this is my second year serving on this advisory board. Along with speaking in front of you each month, I'm a member of the Drama Club. I'm a varsity debater on the debate team, a member of EVE, a first-year TJ Squared member, and I'm a member of the DEI Advisory Board. My past year on this board has allowed me to be more involved with my school community, strengthen my public speaking skills, and I've started to create lifelong friendship with my peers. I'm so glad to be back this year. During the first week of October, each class participated in our own student election. Although this election is held every year, this one was quite special because it was held in person for the first time in 2 years. Recently, they've been held through our Google Classrooms. Each candidate was given the chance to speak in front of their class on a podium in a microphone, which is props to them, and try to convince their classmates to vote for them. We had wonderful speeches given, and we were so thankful that we could participate in the elections in person. Next, I'd like to welcome Nolan Barber.
Good evening. My name is Nolan Barbour. I'm a junior here at BI like Danny, and I'm excited for my first year on this board. I'm a varsity lacrosse athlete, and I play on the school golf team as well. Aside from sports, I'm in the top 3 of my class, and I take part in the student leadership program. In the next few weeks, our school will be preparing for its first official homecoming. The homecoming football game will be set on Friday, October 28th, and the pep rally will take place during the school day of the game. Home court will be announced at that pep rally. The week leading up to the football game will be our Spirit Week, where students are encouraged to take part in each day's theme to show their school spirit. Due to some scheduling issues, the dance was set to take place in November, where we will have a second Spirit Week promoting the dance. By next year, the school hopes to have the dance set closer to the day of the football game, but nonetheless, our students are very excited for our first ever homecoming. I'd like to welcome Flip.
Hello everyone, my name is Quinn Daly, and at BR I am a sophomore. Just recently I was selected to represent the school on this council, and I am so grateful to be here tonight. I am involved with a good selection of activities here at the high school. I am participating in my second year in the marching band, where we just hosted our very own competition. I am a member of Rainwater, the musical theater group, where we will perform Anything Goes in the spring of 2023. One of my teachers last year also selected me to be a student leader. I volunteered at freshman orientation, open house, and the new student breakfast so far. This is a little bit about me. Today I will be talking about the first home game that BR had a few weeks ago. On Friday, September 23rd, they had their first varsity home game against Barnstable, where during halftime the marching band debuted our new show. It is called The Forest Awaits and includes music from Peter and the Wolf, and it went really well. In the bleachers, we also dance, play, and have a really good time showing our school spirit. Red Nation supported Childhood Cancer Awareness Month by selling and wearing gold t-shirts to raise money. Before the game, we play our fight song and the national anthem. Whenever BR gets a touchdown, all you can hear is the school's fight song being played very fast to celebrate, where the cheerleaders do a coordinated dance. In the end, we all had fun and the team won, so I think it was a very special night. Thank you for your time. I will now welcome Rachel Corey to the stand.
Hello, I hope you are all having a great evening. My name is Rachel Corey, and I am a sophomore here at BR. It is an honor and a pleasure to meet with all of you here as a newly appointed member of this committee. As well as being a member of this committee, I am also a varsity debater on the debate team. I am also the treasurer of DECA Club and treasurer of the new to open DECA Print Shop. I'm a pianist, a dancer, and an A+ student. And I'm a student leader with Quinn. Last year, I organized a can donation drive and a clothing drive at BR. The can drive was scheduled around Thanksgiving, so that anyone who was in need of food during that time could have it in their corner. All donations were given to the Rainham Food Pantry. Clothing donations were given to the Salvation Army in Bridgewater during spring and summer so that anybody who was in need during that time could have it. In December, I'm going to hold another donation event to help people even more. As part of my work with partners, I built a business called the Deca Print Shop, like I said before, where clothes and retail of customized and basic designs will be sold there. The opportunity to start this business is very rewarding to me, and I have worked very hard to build it. My sincere thanks extend to all of you for today's meeting, and I look forward to future conversations. Thank you.
Thank you for your report to the Student Advisory Council, and thank you for Ms. Curley for being here tonight. We look forward to future reports, and thank you so much for reporting on what's going on at the high school to us. Madam Chair, that concludes the Student Advisory report.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the Student Advisory Council and to Ms. Curley. We look forward to hearing your reports on them each month. Next on our agenda, we have administrative and school committee reports. First, we have a report of the acting superintendent, Mr. Powers, on the MCAS DESE auto audit review update.
Yes, Madam Chair. With your permission, I'll invite the committee to sit across as we do have a presentation to share. To warm up there, Madam Chair, members of the school committee. I do want to let you know that this evening I ask for your patience. This is a pretty lengthy and comprehensive report. As you know, we did have our comprehensive review from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and we also have our MCAS data to share. Instead of doing separate reports and presentations, because they all actually tie in together, I thought it was best to do one presentation for you this evening. So please, enjoy the show. There will be an opportunity at the end for questions and answers. I think hopefully many of the questions that you may have or that come up will be answered as the presentation goes on, but certainly if there's something pressing that you want to ask as the presentation is going, please don't hesitate to just let me know. But consistent with our district's mission to provide excellence in education for all students, as a district, we are committed to improving outcomes. At the end of the day, that's what we're all about. We want to make our students better than when they entered our classrooms, and we really want to improve those outcomes for all of our students and prepare them for college and career readiness. When we start to talk about our path of excellence, that really at the end of the day, consistent again with our mission to provide that excellence in education, we always need to make sure that we're looking to see where we came from. We also need to have a future focus. Where is it that we want to end up? Because I think if we spend all of our time always reflecting on what just happened, which is so important, we're always only going to stay one step ahead of where we've been. But if we can balance that with really truly a future focus and a forward focus, we actually have the opportunity to propel the district forward. Two main drivers that I want to talk about this evening that are really going to drive our improvement efforts of the district. The first is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Comprehensive District Review, and the second one obviously is our recent MCAS data. Obviously these drivers and other drivers will help form our future student success plan, which as you know ends this spring. Obviously, we have these two main data sets that we really want to share with you this evening. The first is the qualitative data that really kind of tells a story. We were very fortunate, certainly probably didn't think so at the time, to have DESE in the district because it's always great to have an outsider's perspective. I think we obviously have an opinion of the district, and when you can bring an outside agency in to confirm many of the great things that we know, and also confirm some of the things that we need to improve on, it just certainly helps to have another lens. In terms of quantitative data, obviously we'll talk a little bit about the impact of COVID and those numbers, and then obviously MCAS and the current MCAS, and then looking at multi-year trends as well. So I want to start with obviously the comprehensive district review. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE, completed a comprehensive district review, which is actually linked in this PowerPoint. This PowerPoint presentation will be shared with the community as well as the school committee, be posted to our website and sent out, and also the full report will be shared as well. But this comprehensive district review the purpose was to evaluate the district using DESE's 6 standards and 21 related indicators of effective school district policy and practice. You can see there the 6 main areas were leadership and governance, assessment, human resources and professional development, student support, financial and asset management, and curriculum instruction. This process began during the 21-22 school year with an on-site visit in February. The initial process was really a documentation submittal, and Mr. Joe Lewis and the team and I had several pre-meetings with the department before they came out in February. We were originally told that we should expect a draft report in June. They were hoping for June. Unfortunately, it was delayed, and we did not get it until the summer, until August. We did have an opportunity to make some corrections in that draft report, submit it back to DESE, and then a final report was released later in September to us. Obviously, the report reflects data that was collected by the department through interviews. They interviewed several members of our organization, including administrative team members, staff members, parents, students, school committee members, town officials from both Bridgewater and Rainham, union leadership as well. And obviously classroom observations, they visited each site and spent a number of, visited a number of classrooms in each building, and as I mentioned, obviously completing a document review as well on those 6 district standards and 21 indicators. Just to highlight some key findings, the report itself is pretty lengthy, just in fairness to you and to the audience. We really tried to pull out some key findings, both positive and areas that were noted for improvement. So just to start with some of the positive notations, the presence of our strategic plan, that was noted throughout the document. Obviously our student success plan, as you know, is our district strategic plan. So several times we were noted for having that clear plan in place. Obviously the budget planning and development, and kudos to Ms. Macedo and her crew. Our district DEI initiatives, welcome environments and positive climates. This was something that really, I was so happy to hear that DESE picked up on that. As you know, we've really started our SEL efforts over the last few years. And one of the things that we asked our schools, our classroom teachers to really do is just to really work on one part of that, and that was relationships. How you greet the students every morning. What type of environment do you create? We really want the students to feel welcome and safe and supported. And the fact that, again, DESE came out and that was one of the positive findings from their report really shows that, our staff was committed to that, and really hats off to them for embracing that because it was noted. And obviously, sensitivity towards students' needs. Throughout this report, it was noted students provided feedback to DESE, especially during those interviews, and that they really felt as though the students reported that they felt staff members were really sensitive towards their needs and made changes when necessary based on that feedback. Some areas noted for improvement, the educator and administrator evaluation system, making sure we're providing concrete feedback that's actionable and leads towards improvement. Assessment and data systems, although yes, we are using assessments and data, really having a clear system for collecting that data, analyzing that data, and then sharing that data. Establishing a multi-tiered system of support. Again, this is something that we as a district already started to embark on, but as you look at a solid MTSS system, it's anywhere from a 5 to 7 year implementation. And curriculum instruction, obviously you would expect them to provide some feedback on curriculum instruction. Really one of the areas, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, noted, the curriculum resources that we're currently using. You've heard us talk a lot about using high quality instructional materials. And although we've started to do that under Ms. Richards and Ms. Joyce's guidance, we still have ways to go. So that was noted for an area. And then also providing rigorous instruction, really focusing on some of those higher order thinking skills, getting beyond just the yes and no type of questions, and then also students taking an active role, hearing more student voice throughout the classrooms. So what I'd like to do is just, to go through each standard and really just share a couple findings, 2 to 3, depending on the standard. Really the purpose of that is to highlight something that was noted and then also share an area for improvement. I think first and foremost, I just want to thank the school committee. Obviously, your work in terms of supporting the district, forming relationships with central office, the administration, but also reaching out to both towns, forming a collaborative relationship with them. Obviously, the relationship that the district and school committee has formed with labor as well. That was noted throughout the report as well. So really, you should feel, very good about your efforts as a school committee in terms of improving this district. Obviously, one area for suggested improvement was to involve students and families more in the development of improvement plans, which should be based on data analysis, which we obviously talked about having a clear system of data analysis, collecting, analyzing, and sharing that data. Assessment, as you know, because the committee has so graciously supported the implementation of iReady at the K-8 level. Obviously, iReady assesses students' literacy readiness and also math skills, and obviously it's taken 3 times a year at the K-8 level. It's great that we have that in place, and we were noted for having that, but also, again, as we've already stated, having a clear system to actually use that data now once we have it. The fact that students reported teachers regularly communicate with them about their progress, again, was something that was positively noted. And again, I can't thank our teachers for doing that as well. But again, one area of need is to really create that data system. And again, it was something that we knew we needed to do. So many of these suggestions for improvement are things that we were already aware of, or things that we've actually already started to work on. Human resources and professional development. The report noted the district is actively working to diversify its workforce, as well as its efforts to provide professional development on the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. As you know, having Ms. Berrios last year work hand in hand with our human resources manager. I know the 2 of them, and also Ms. Richards and some other district staff and building-based staff were part of a diversifying workforce working group with DESE. And so really, we've started to make efforts there. And again, I mentioned at the beginning about educator evaluation, making sure we're really using the educator evaluation system, both for staff and for admin, to strengthen instruction by providing that constructive growth-related feedback to teachers. The student support standard. Again, the report noted that the district prioritizes the physical, intellectual, and emotional safety of students and adults. And again, I just can't, highlight enough the fact that we've actually made a commitment to that, even pre-COVID, and that DESE comes out and notices that. It really is telling. It also acknowledged, obviously our work again in diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it's also, as we've said, it's a journey. We haven't quite reached our destination just yet, so it's something that we continue to build on. And also, the fact that we have begun to create a tiered system of support for academics and social emotional supports as well. However, as I shared with you, that 5 to 7 year process, we are really just in the infancy stages of that, so we do have a ways to go before we have a true, strong MTSS system in place. I did already mention, again, Ms. Macedo and her team, the report did note that the district, specifically the business office, utilizes efficient business systems with clear, user-friendly budget documents, and also noted the existence of a 5 and 10 year capital plan for both IT and facility upgrades and for future projects as well. The last standard that was assessed was curriculum and instruction, and the classroom observation data showed that teachers create a welcoming environment for all students. something we've already talked about. Students stated teachers were willing to change content and instruction based on their interest and feedback. So again, obviously it shows that our teachers really are working hard to form those relationships with our students, taking their interests, learning more about them, and then obviously tailoring their instruction in their classroom environments to their students. The report did note our efforts to begin to review curriculum and use high-quality instructional materials. However, it was also noted the lack of consistent high-quality instructional materials across grade levels and content areas. But again, that is something we are aware of and something that you have already started to support as a committee through the budget process, the purchase of those high-quality instructional materials. So again, thank you, but we know we have to do that across all content areas and across all grade levels as well. And classroom observation data did show that not all classroom experiences were academically rigorous. I think, obviously that goes hand in hand when we start to look at materials. Are the materials rigorous? Does that allow for, rigorous instruction? And so I think as we start to look at some of these high quality instructional materials that we're bringing in, that'll naturally lead to rigorous instruction. So I think it's, as we kind of wrap up talking about curriculum instruction, teaching and learning, it is important to kind of transition into the fact that teaching and learning, curriculum instruction, 100% unequivocally, both of those areas were impacted by COVID-19. That's something that we understood at the time. We were expecting it to have a negative impact on teaching and learning, and I think, obviously evidence will show that yes, that pandemic, the pandemic that we're, in many ways still dealing with, didn't just affect BR, but it affected obviously all schools across the Commonwealth, and certainly most and all schools across the country. But one thing that we do know is that, it was 2+ years of teaching and learning were impacted. 2+ years of social emotional connections and development were impacted. As much as our staff did family and community outreach, via the computers, it doesn't replace that in-person, one-on-one connection. And so, yes, those things were impacted. Our teachers showed up every day, especially when we were virtual, trying to make those connections, trying to deliver as much instruction as they could. But again, we knew it at the time, and now we're seeing it. Nothing replaces being in a classroom, that in-person teaching and learning opportunities. But that brings us to that we can't afford 3+. We have to look at this and say, okay, yes, COVID is still real, COVID is still here, but we can't just sit back and say, well, it's because of COVID. We can't afford that, especially as we start to creep into year 3 and 3+. So we do have a responsibility to close that achievement gap and obviously address the social, emotional, behavioral needs of our students that were negatively impacted during those 2+ years. I just wanted to highlight, and obviously members of the school committee, you have seen this from the prior years, but certainly for the audience, just to kind of give them a sense. This data set is from the 21-22 school year, and it shows the number of COVID cases per week. So you can see, obviously, as we started the year, yes, we did have quite the uptick in cases. That first, really second week reporting was our large number of positive cases at the Williams. And then from there, we did see cases start to pop up across the district, and as you can see, steadily increased. As we got into the winter months, you can see our numbers significantly shot up, especially right around the holidays and when we returned from vacation. The fact that we had 347 positive cases in 1 week, I think speaks volumes to the impact that COVID had on our students, on our staff. And then, as we did come out of those winter months, you can see that we did start to decrease. We did see an uptick again towards the end of the year. And, I think some of that's attributed because, we see a decline, people become more active, more social, and then obviously we had, that spring uptick as well. COVID is still here. We are still having positive cases this year. Nothing certainly like we saw in 21-22 or even the year before in 2021, but it's something that we're still dealing with. You can see here, the purpose of sharing this data is just to show you that the impact that COVID has had on teaching and learning. Obviously, the two main players in teaching and learning are the teachers and the students. And during COVID, to no fault of anyone's, it wasn't possible for students to be in school, and it wasn't possible for staff members to be in school. And so if they're not here, then obviously teaching isn't happening, learning isn't happening. So by default, yes, some of the decline in our academic achievement was expected. We knew that was going to happen. But really, this is as a result of protocols, health officials' recommendations. At the time, as you know, we instructed our students, we instructed our staff, if you're not feeling well, stay home. The best way to prevent COVID from spreading is not to be around other people. This also shows and represents the amount of absences for students and staff because of positive COVID cases. Or if you remember, especially early on, we had multiple staff members, multiple students designated multiple times as close contacts. And at the time, the protocols required that you were out of school for X number of days. And early on, it was 10 school days. If you were, designated close contact multiple times, and then maybe yourself, tested positive for COVID, we had students that were missing a significant amount of time, 20, 30, 40 days in the school year, and same thing with staff. Again, to no fault of anyone's, it was the pandemic, but you can see that does have an impact. And just to show you for the students, that graph shows the number of students that were deemed chronically absent throughout the school year. And for a student to be deemed chronically absent, they have to have 10 or more absences in a school year. You can see back to the 1920 school year, and I apologize if it's hard to read, we only had 89 students deemed chronically absent. For last school year, for 21-22, we had 1,401 students deemed chronically absent, which means they missed 10 or more school days. You can see the staff numbers as well in terms of staff absences prior to COVID, that 19-20 school year. This is total, so not you take the total number. This is looking at the total number of days that not obviously one staff member was out, but collectively we had 8,000 plus in 19-20, and we were up to over 15,000 plus in 21-22. So again, COVID does have an impact on teaching and learning. It's something that we understood and that we expected to happen. When looking at statewide data, this is not a situation that's unique to BR. It was a statewide issue. This information came right from DESE, because obviously they're acknowledging it as well. The average student statewide missed 11 days in 2021. The average student statewide missed 15 days in 2022. So you can see it's consistent with those numbers, the increase from 21 to 22. 1.7 million days of missed school statewide because of positive COVID-19 cases in 21-22. Again, that doesn't take into consideration if you were close contact. That is just 1.7 million days of missed school statewide because of positive cases. However, it is important to note, because we also ran a statewide, we participated in the statewide testing program, that 1 million plus other school days were saved as a result of the statewide testing program. So that 1.7 could be significantly higher statewide, and obviously our numbers even higher here at BR had we not participated in that statewide testing program. So that brings us to looking at MCAS, obviously the Massachusetts Comprehensive Assessment System. Again, we did anticipate our achievement levels to decline, just given what we know. However, this is where we are, and we are also acknowledging that the scores that you're about to see are not acceptable. Yes, there are some contributing factors to that, and we're acknowledging that. However, when you see these scores, I think you'll agree that this is not representative of Bridgewater Rainham and the district that we want to be. So we know that we need to take action. Just to share with you, some information. The 2022 school year was the first full MCAS administration for grades 3 through 8 since 2019. And you can see there from the chart. Obviously, in the spring of 2020, no tests were given. 21, only half the test was administered to grades 3 through 8, and then obviously we went back to a full test in 2022. Grade 10 students in 2022 had not taken MCAS since 2019 when they were in grade 7, just to give you some perspective. So those grade 10 students last year had not taken the full MCAS since they were in grade 7. So, again, our students become used to taking that assessment, and it's, when there's a pause or a break in action, that also contributes to that as well. Just to kind of share some statewide information for you. Again, right from DESE. DESE reports that the 2022 MCAS showed mixed results compared to the 21 scores. Math scores statewide increased slightly. ELA scores did show a decline, and science scores also increased slightly. When we compare those results to pre-pandemic levels, again, statewide, we certainly across the Commonwealth have a ways to go in all subject areas to fully recover that learning loss. The percent of students meeting or exceeding expectations statewide decreased from pre-pandemic, and when we're talking about pre-pandemic, we're really looking at that spring of 2019 test administration to the spring of 2022. So you can see those numbers are statewide. So ELA 3 through 8 declined 11% from pre-pandemic to now. ELA grade 10 went down 3%. And again, this is the percent of students meeting or exceeding expectations. Math 3 through 8 declined 10%. Math at the high school, 9%. Science, technology, engineering, 6% in grade 5 and 4% in grade 8. You'll see later on there's not comparable data for grade 10 because of the next generation MCAS. So when you actually start looking at our district data, we'll get into it obviously by subject area. This is overall grade level data. This is not school specific, this is district specific. And so really what our intent from here after this, we started to provide information to our staff. Obviously our administrative team, our building principals have already started to look at the data by building, and so we will be getting that information out to staff, because although yes, for you this is our district data, we know what's most important for our buildings is to have their school level data. So again, this just reflects the district overall, so you can see these are our ELA MCAS results by grade level. We did go back to 2019. Obviously 2020 is not reflected there because there was no assessment given. So you can see how we've done each year from the previous year, and then obviously that 3-year change from pre-pandemic to now is in that far right column. And it goes from grade 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Shows you the overall grade 3 to 8 grade span, and then how grade 10 did as well. So again, this is our data. These are our scores. It is what it is at this point. There's no going back. We can't rewind the clock. So we're going to look at this. We're going to see where our areas of strength lie, where are areas that we can improve on, and that's what we're going to set out to do. Unfortunately, this data looks somewhat similar for other areas as we start to also look at our subgroups. And again, so this shows you some of our high needs subgroups. It shows you at top, obviously, all students, then breaking it down by low income, students without disabilities, our English learners, our non-English learners, and then obviously by race as well. So you can see again the change, the negative change, the decrease in students that were meeting or exceeding expectations. In some cases, double digits, which I'd be the first to tell you is not acceptable. But it's something that we're working on and that we're acknowledging. Here's ELA for the high school. Again, subgroup. And those subgroups are the same. If I should note for this slide and for any other subgroup slide, if there is a blank, that just means that there are not enough students to actually form a subgroup. If there's only one student taking a test, DESE does not consider that to be a subgroup. You have to have a minimum number of students in order to actually report out that subgroup. Here are our math scores. Again, similar, 3 through 8, 3 through 8 overall, and then grade 10. You can see how we did from the year before, but also how we did pre-pandemic as well. And again, double-digit decline in percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations. Here's our subgroup data for math, grades 3 through 8. You will notice there was one positive change. Hispanic Latino subgroup did improve. Here's our high school math data as well. Again, students with disabilities, positive trend, and again, if there's a blank, it's just that there are no students in that subgroup. Here's science, technology, and engineering by grade level. As you know, STE is only given in grades 5, 8, and 10. Just to clarify, DESE reports it as grade 10. We typically give the biology exam just because of the order that we actually offer biology, because we offer it to freshmen. We do give the biology exam in 9th grade, but when it gets reported as 10th grade scores. Not all high schools offer biology as a freshman course, so that's just why there's a little difference there. But again, there is no comparison because this was the first year of the next gen MCAS. So you can see that there's not a comparison in grade 10. And again, our subgroups. 3 through 8. And as we've already stated, there is no change data available for high school yet because of the next generation MCAS being given for the first time in 2022. And I certainly know I've shared a lot of numbers with you, and you will have obviously this full report, and so you can see all the numbers. And as I stated, we'll be sharing this information in greater detail with our staff. When I say in greater detail, obviously giving them additional information by their buildings so that they can actually look at grade level data, building level data, and look at trends that way. Yes, it's great to always have that picture of the district, but like I said, what's most important is obviously that they have their own grade level and own building-based data. So, as I've stated from the beginning, our path, we're on a journey to excellence, and we understand that, that journey isn't always easy, and that journey isn't always smooth, and that there may be obstacles or challenges that we need to face, and you can certainly see that we've faced some of those challenges, we've encountered some of those obstacles, but it's not something that we're willing to just sit back and say, well, there's a challenge for us, we're just going to throw our hands up. As you know, we have made some great strides and efforts around the idea of having a growth mindset, showing grit and perseverance, and I think this this current situation lends itself to that. We realize that we have to make progress. We have to get to perfection. We're not there yet. It's going to be a slow and steady process, but we will get there. We are going to show grit. We are going to show perseverance, determination, because at the end of the day, we want to end that path and land on excellence. Because it's not just what we want, it's what our kids deserve. So, this is just a visual for you to see. This is, again, kind of representative of where we hope to end up. And as I stated, it is a journey. We realize that, there are a few key action items that we can take. Some of these we've already started, we've already taken, but we know that, if we focus on some key improvement areas, improvement will happen. Obviously, the first, you can see our first stop on our path to excellence is to actually use this data. We need to analyze this data. We need to distribute it. We need to review it, obviously by school, by district. We need to take a clear look at where we've been, where we currently are, and where we need to go, and use the data that's available to us. Not just MCAS. There's certainly other data sets that play into this. Yes, we obviously just talked about MCAS. We talked about our district review, but there's data and information that we gather on a daily basis. It's that feedback that we get from our students. It's the feedback that we get from the community, feedback that we get from our parents, our staff members. That also plays into this. So those are data sets as well that we're going to use. On our second stop, we are going to implement our 2022-2023 action items in our in the current student success plan, which again is linked in this presentation, but will also be shared. As you know, our student success plan is a 5-year plan. This is the last year of it. We do believe that we'll be able to accomplish everything that we did set out 5 years ago. And if there are things that we realize we can't accomplish, obviously those will probably show up in our next plan. But some of the action items for this year, just to give you a highlight, obviously our effort continues around social emotional learning, especially now with Ms. Rose on board. We're expanding those efforts to make sure that we're providing resources to our students, to our families, to our staff members. We continue to tackle MTSS, making sure that we have a clear multi-tiered system of support for academics and social emotional supports and behavior. Obviously, our DEI initiatives will continue. It's not something, as I stated earlier, we're on a journey. We realize we're not quite there yet. We have a ways to go, although we've been recognized for our efforts. We realize when we start talking about curriculum and instruction and teaching and learning, we have to take a look at our current instructional framework. We have to revise our district curriculum accommodation plan to make sure it's up to date and that it's actually providing support for our teachers and providing accommodations to our students. And then obviously we're going to continue to review all of our curriculum materials to make sure that they are high quality and to make sure that they are rigorous. Stop 3 at the top, we are going to continue to implement those new resources with fidelity. Any materials that we brought in, and obviously any new instructional strategies that we adopt. And we're going to continue to explore high quality instructional materials. Obviously again, as we talked about, through all content areas and across all grade levels. We're going to develop in collaboration with our stakeholders a new 3 to 5 year student success plan. That again is something that we'll tackle this year for a spring 2023 rollout to the committee for approval. We'll obviously share it with our stakeholders, our community members in the spring before school gets out with a full implementation fall of 2023. We're going to make sure our systems, at the top again on stop 5, we're going to make sure our systems are aligned, equity-minded, and based on the instructional core. So everything that we're doing is about students, staff, and content. And if we're doing something outside of that, then it's probably not important that maybe we shouldn't be focusing on it. Because I think even when you look at larger items, Mr. Kilgore's facility items, those directly tie into the instructional core, providing those educational spaces to our students, to our staff. But if there's something that, again, doesn't fall into that instructional core, then it's not something that we're going to focus on. And then I think lastly, things that we can do right now that we've already started to do, engage in reflection. It has to be something that's ongoing, and it has to be with a focus on where we've been, but also where we need to go. As I shared with you in the beginning, we really have to have that future focus, that forward focus to make sure that we're achieving our goals and we're moving the district forward. If we can do those 6 things starting today, starting already in the beginning of the school year and continuing, we should reach our end target, which obviously is excellence in education for all students. Our hope is to get there sooner rather than later, and we're confident that we will. I can't promise that it's going to happen by next month, the following month, but it will be something that we commit to. We have already shown, hopefully, to you that we are committing to it, and it's something that we're not backing down from. We realize we have a challenge in front of us. It is important to note that lasting change and improvement does take time. Again, there's no overnight miracles that are going to happen here. However, it is important that we can see change overnight. We can make small victories every day. We can make progress every day. Those small changes add up to big changes. And we know those big changes then become lasting changes. If we just strive to be 1% better every day, celebrate and try to achieve those small victories, we will be heading on the right path. We will continue on our path to excellence. I'm sure of it. We're committed to it. This is certainly not, hopefully I've conveyed this already, but if not, let me just emphasize and point out to you, this is not about adding more. This is about refocusing our efforts. When you look at our teaching and learning staff, when you look at all of our support staff, you've heard us say this time and time again, our staff is working as hard as they possibly can. So it's not about working any harder. It's not about adding anything onto their plates. It's about looking at what we're doing and can we refocus our efforts. So that means, yes, at times, if we're going to give something else to them, we have to take something away. There's no finger pointing or blaming. This isn't to say that there's one grade level over another that's responsible for any of this, or there's any one person that's responsible for this. Obviously, at the end of the day, I'm responsible for everything that happens in this district. So yes, this is my responsibility, but it's also my responsibility, one I take seriously, to make these changes. But this is us. This is us. This is who we are. We have to own it as a district, and we have to move forward. I think it's also important to share with you that we all have a collective responsibility. When I say all, I do mean all. Every building in this district, every resident in both towns, the town of Rainham, the town of Bridgewater, the town officials, school committee, central office, our buildings, we all have a collective responsibility in this. And I think if we all commit to it, we all share in that responsibility, we commit to having that responsibility, that collective responsibility, we will see together that this district will move forward. Again, I am confident that that will happen, but we have to do it together. We can't do it in isolation, and we can't do it in pockets. That being said, I'm happy to take some questions and answers. Again, I understand I shared a lot of information with you this evening. You will have copies of this report, and I'm happy to answer any future questions, at a future meeting after you've had time to kind of digest some of this information.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Are there any questions from committee members?
I have a couple of, Madam Chair. Mr. Powers, when did iReady start being used in the district?
Last year was our first official rollout. We piloted the year before.
In the early elementary grades.
Yeah. So we rolled out iReady to every grade last year.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
K to 8.
K to 8.
Just K.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. You and I have had many of conversations about my feelings towards MCAS and my disdain for it, because it is a snapshot in time and it is a test that's given over 3 or 4 days. Doesn't take into account what our students come in from, whether they had breakfast that morning, whether they had warm clothes to wear to school that day, whatever their situation is. None of it takes that into account. So as a father who looks at the score and then shreds the score without sharing it with his children, I encourage a lot of parents to do that. To your point earlier in your slide, our social emotional impact of COVID has been, is telling. And to add a test score to that, to me, is irresponsible as an adult. So I just put that out there as and the other thing I want to say is there's going to be a lot of fervor out there, a lot of pouncing, if you would. Now's not the time to pounce like animals, but rather join us on our path to excellence. And as you said, this is not going to be an overnight thing. This is going to take effort from everyone, including this body. And I think it's something that we all, the 8 of us, take very seriously. And I hope that the community realizes that it's not, like I said, time to pounce. It's not time to blame anyone. It's time to get behind the efforts that we're going to put forward, that you outlined, and move forward. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Fitzgibbons?
Yeah, to follow up on Mr. Dolan's points. What I understand, we've had a downturn, and I would say this whole state's probably had a downturn in MCAS results. It would be interesting to see what our district did relative to the state averages or comparable districts, or however we want to do it to, as Mr. Dolan said, not pounce, but just understand that, everybody's going through this. So if we could generate more data, because I think at the end of the day, having more data is better than not having more data. And that helps us understand where do we need to go. That being said, I just suggest, we need to look around again at the rest of the state, best practices, comparable districts, et cetera, for best practices on how do we recover from this? How do we, and I don't want to teach to the test or anything like that, but how do we ensure that all students are learning at their highest level possible? I think we had a conversation the other night about a former student who has excelled in his life, and I knew him way back in the day. And that's a success story to me. Now, would he have ever passed the MCAS? I probably don't think so, but that's okay because he has excelled in his life, And so it's, to me, it's all about how do we recover, and it sounds like you've got a plan, but let's put the meat around the bones of the plan, and let's make sure, as Mr. Dolan said, we all get together on it and, say, yeah, this makes sense, it's the way to go forward.
Anyone else? Mrs. Conrad-Parenta?
Of course I'm going to say something. I would just like to start I very much appreciate the data and the presentation that you presented. It was very clear and concise and to the point, and I appreciate, I think it level sets for all of us of where we're at and where we need to go. And I also appreciate, I think you said that, the district has a responsibility to close that achievement gap, taking that responsibility, and so do we all as parents and community members need to take responsibility. But I appreciate this statement and this sentiment coming from you. I would also like to say, because again, I talk about all the time, is I do appreciate the emphasis around the social emotional piece, and with Ms. Rose coming on, because it is a huge issue. If kids can't get to school and they can't focus and be in a classroom, they cannot learn. So I appreciate your emphasis and your desire to address that. But again, I will say is I think the data, again, MCAS is a one-time shot. I get it. I have a kid that struggles very much with testing. But I do appreciate seeing the level set of where we're at and where we need to get to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Powers, for your update and on the audit review and on the MCAS test results. While the scores are not what we had hoped for, I would expect that with those key action items and adjustments that we will, that you presented to us tonight, that we will close that achievement gap. And as Mr. Powers stated, this is a collective responsibility from the administration, school committee, and teachers to the parents and community. We are all in this together. And not to sound cliche, but together is better. Thank you.
One question. So, I forgot to ask, when will this data, because this was rich in data and a lot here,
Yes.
when will parents be able to see this? Because it's hard to go
No,
through.
understandable. Our intent is to get it out by the end of the week.
Okay.
We'll, obviously send this presentation out. I know some of those other documents are linked in here, but I do appreciate sometimes trying to find those links are difficult, so we'll pull all those out as well, including the comprehensive district review.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is our October 1st seat count. Ms. Coleman.
run back. It's never easy, is it? Okay. Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. Madam Chair, members of the school committee, Mr. Powers, to be here to present the preliminary seat count based on our October. Someone might just want to shake that for me. Thank you. The bulb might have just done.
I think it's the bulb, because this thing does turn off at a certain time. It was 9 o'clock. It was a hint for us to wrap up the meeting, but I guess 8:30 is the new 9.
Well, I do know you have the papers with you, so I'll just read the numbers. The seat count is the total number of students enrolled in the Bridgewater-Raynham Regional School District in an individual school or program on October 3rd. Well, the grid displays each grade by school. And let me tell you those numbers. At New Mitchell Elementary School, which is now PK, Kindergarten 1 and 2, PK has 150 students enrolled, 257 in kindergarten. Grade 1 is 276. Grade 2 was also 276. For a total of 959 students attending George Mitchell Elementary School. For Williams Intermediate School, now being grade 3 through 5, grade 3 had 268 students, grade 4, 270, grade 5, 263, for a total of 801 students. For Bridgewater Middle School, which is now grade 6 through 8. Grade 6 was a total of 251 students, grade 7, 243 students, and grade 8, 248 students. Now over to Raynham, we have Lily B. Merrill Elementary School. Kindergarten is 178, grade 1 is 174, for a total of 352 students. La Liberty Elementary School, which is grades 2 through 4. Grade 2 had 156, grade 3, 166, grade 4, 179. Rainham Middle School, which is grades 5 through 8. Grade 5 was 178, grade 6, 192, grade 7, 191, grade 8 and that was 165, for a total at Rainham Middle School of 725 students. Therapeutic Day program had 1 7th grader, 2 8th graders, and 1 9th grader, 2 10th graders, 5 11th graders, and 3 12th graders, for a total of 14. At our high school, which is grades 9 through 12, there's 349 in 9th grade, 379 in 10th grade, 317 in 11th grade, and 304 in 12th grade, and 13 year 13 students, for a total of 1,362 students attending our high school. Then we have our itinerants, our service-only students, students who are 3 or more and come in for their special education services only. And there's all PK students, and there's 27 of them. In our Excel program, which is our alternative high school, which happens in the evenings and it's held here at the high school, we have 1 9th grader, 8 10th graders, 9 11th graders, and 8 12th graders, for a total of 26. Our out-of-district student population is 1 preschooler, 3 3rd graders, 2 4th graders, 1 5th grader, 1 6th grader, 1 7th grader, 4 8th graders, 6 9th graders, 3 10th graders,
no 11th graders, actually, but we have 4 12th graders and 11 year 13 students for a total of 37. So if you added that all up and you saw my fancy grid, you'd know that we have a total student body in the district on October 3rd of 5,546. This is a preliminary number at this time because this report isn't finalized till the end of the month. And of course, usually I come back to you in either November or December to present to you the full picture where we see the 5-year outline of the growth and all that. But I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Let me guess. What's the question? Mrs. Carneva-Brento, do you have a question? I do, actually. Again, I like these numbers. They're good to look at to see just preliminary what I could look by what I've over the years trended and we've gotten from previous years. It looks like the district enrollment numbers for this year, the total number is higher than we've been in the last 5 or 6 years.
Right.
And even to last year, it looks like they're up over like 220 some kids from what I can tell. And the numbers aren't apples to apples because some of the movement in the Bridgewater side of the school. But it's still, it's up over 220 kids. And I'm just curious whether you or Mr. Powers, like that's a decent, that's like 5%, it's a decent amount of kids. It's up, and I'm just wondering where they're at because I have a hard time comparing apples to apples because the movement in Bridgewater and the classes moving, and so I'm just, I mean, from what I can tell, the high school's up like 20 kids, you know, and Merrill's up like 30 kids or 25 kids. I'm just curious, is it just little bits of increments at each school?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It is just a little bit at all of the grades. Yeah. In so many grades, it adds up. But we do have a large kindergarten class. That's a few more than we've had. Also, we have some of those that bubble group that's moved up to the high school. They're grade 10 now. So that is, along with the large number, little more than usual 9th graders, it makes it add up to what we see there. Just that little effect of just a little in every grade that adds up fast, you know.
But we definitely notice it and see it. You know, we've already, Ms. Joyce and Ms. Richards and I have already talked. We've had to order some additional curriculum materials just because we didn't expect. We always have a slight overage in our orders, but we've had to actually reach out and start to bring additional materials in because we have had students move into the district.
So does this, I'll say I thought I remember last year Angela Watson at the high school saying we weren't taking school choice for 9th and 10th graders because the classes were so big at school. So I'm assuming some of this is affecting our school choice also enrollments because our numbers, well, particularly the high school numbers are up in certain grades still.
Yes, I believe.
And the class sizes are bigger in some of these grades, kindergarten or wherever, which we added the assistant or the ESP, which is great.
If I could, Madam Chair, it's also worth noting to Mrs. Conrad-Lorenzo's point about school choices, which impacts our budget, because those school choice students come with dollars, frankly. So it impacts our budget as well as our.
Mr. Fitzgibbons.
Actually, to follow up on Mr. Dolan's point and kind of to talk about the budget for a second, do we have a preliminary split between Bridgewater and Rainham % of students in each town?
I didn't include that yet because
okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you. But to follow up, and maybe this is for with Mr. Dolan. When we do the split of Bridgewater and Rainham to assess the, put the town assessment out, how do school choice children get into that mix? So if we've got children from Taunton, Middleborough, et cetera, and we have more Rainham students than Bridgewater leaving the district, how does that all factor in together?
Well, the school choice that we take in are not part of the assessments. But we do have the students that have left us.
So we only get the state aid for those students who come in?
Yes.
As opposed to getting the state aid for the students who live here plus the town assessment?
We do for the students that live here, we have them included in the percentages, the ratio, because we are paying out for those students as part of our budget.
But we also are paying out for school choice students, correct? And does the state fund as fully as the two towns do to us? I guess that's my question.
We pay out for school choice students who leave us.
We have to educate the students who come into the district, correct?
The students who come in, the thought has always been that it's like an airplane. You know, if the airplane's not full, it's still going to go its destination. You put a couple extra children in, you're getting anywhere between 5,000 to 750,000, 5,000 to 7,500 per student, depending on what their needs are.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, see none. Thank you very much for your report. It's wonderful. Okay, next on the agenda we have Budget Subcommittee, Mr. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Get comfortable. I've got a 10-page report tonight. The Budget Subcommittee met on October 12th at 5 p.m. in the Superintendent's Conference Room. In attendance were myself, Madam Chair, and Mr. Marrera. Also there was Mr. Powers, Ms. Macedo, Mr. Kilgore, Ms. Robichaud, and Ms. McDougall, our recording secretary. Just as an update on the track and tennis court, the excavation of soil samples has been completed. It has been determined that no fill will be needed in the surrounding area for the tennis courts, which, as a reminder, is directly behind the home bleachers. And that being said, not having to have fill brought in will hopefully save the district some money on that project. Mr. Kilgore is working with the designer of the tennis courts for the drawings, and they are near completion. It has been discovered that the path leading to the area, to the back entrance of the multipurpose field, does need to be relocated, but that is a simple procedure that we will be able to do hopefully in-house with our own folks. And will have little to no financial impact overall to the cost of the project. The Mitchell School monthly updates. Mr. Powers, I know this is probably on yours, but I'm stealing some of your thunder maybe. Mr. Powers and Mr. Kilgore provided an update that work continues to progress with the bulk of the landscaping complete. However, there are some areas that do need to be reseeded, and that'll be done in the fall as well as the spring if it doesn't take. Some other areas of work continues in the gym, the de-escalation rooms and the retractable walls in the gym, on the stage, and in the media center. Ms. Macedo asked when the electric bills would be turned over to the district for payment, as Bacon currently is paying the bills. Ms. Macedo noted that she would add the Mitchell School to the Combis account. Combis, for those who don't know, is a joint purchasing venture through the state, and we get really good rates for gas and electricity. And over the years, we joined Combines, and right now our natural gas is fixed price through October of 23, with 1 and 2 year extensions at the rate of $5.2940 per decaderm. And then our electricity is a one-term with no extensions, good through August 31st of 2024, at a fixed rate of 0.08545 cents per kilowatt hour. And if anybody has questions about those, what a kilowatt is or a decaderm, I'd point you to Mr. Kilgore. Utility worker proposal. This is an action item. Mr. Kilgore proposed the addition of a utility worker to tackle the minor classroom repairs that cannot be done during the day. This position would be a second shift position, and the person would take on the necessary preventative maintenance and provide coverage when multiple second shift custodians are out. So, Madam Chair, in the form of a motion to approve funding for an additional utility worker for the second shift for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Dolan, a second by Mr. Marrera. Any discussion?
I will add, Madam Chair, if I may, that this position would be carried in our budget, our operating budget, and we do have the funds for it.
Thank you. Mr. Fitzgibbons?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, thank you for that, Mr. Dolan, because that would have been my first question.
I figured it was.
Which is why I'm sure you said that. But are we anticipating this happening beyond? Is this going to be a full-time position forever and ever and ever in the district?
So right now it is a one-year appointment.
It's a one-year appointment.
Yes.
Okay.
For the 2022-2023.
Okay. So, and this goes to my second question, which I'm sure, given what you just said, we can then evaluate as we're going through the budget process this year into next year, whether that's the most efficient use of the funds or if we want to put it to a better use for students that may be necessary.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, the motion is to approve funding for additional utility workers, second shift for the 2022-2023 school year. We have the motion by Mr. Dolan, second by Mr. Marrera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Another action item, Madam Chair, custodian substitute rate. Mr. Kilgore proposed an increase to the rate for substitutes, as the current rate is $15 an hour. And we are having difficulty finding reliable candidates, if at all. So in the form of a motion to approve a rate increase for custodian substitutes from $15 per hour to $20 per hour.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Dolan, second by Mr. Marrera. Any discussion?
And Madam Chair, before Mr. Fitzgibbons asks, this money is covered under our operating budget.
I still do have questions. I apologize.
No, that's all right.
I like to
just
ask.
figured I'd get the first one.
No, that's fine. We're going to $20 an hour for substitute custodians. What's the pay rate we're doing for substitute teachers?
I have that.
I was going to say, I have to pull the contract. Or actually, my contract notes.
Okay, here it is, Mr. Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So our substitute teachers is $85. No, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong column.
It's 27.25.
Yes, here it is. Sorry, 23. January 22. So it's $102.38.
$102.38 per day.
Per day.
So what is that?
5.5 hours a day?
It's $15.75 an hour.
$15.75 an
Now,
hour.
so that's, if I could, Mr. Fitzgibbons, so that is a substitute teacher. A BR retired substitute teacher is $17.50 an hour for $113.75.
So I'd just like to ask the school committee to consider this, that we are saying if we vote this, we value substitute custodians more than we value substitute teachers. That's the way we're paying, and I'm going to vote no on it for that reason. So.
And I respect that, Mr. Fitzgibbons, but I don't think it's a matter of respecting. I think it's a matter of actually being able to have people come in and do the work to clean and make sure that our learning environments are clean. So as much as I appreciate your sentiment there, If you're asking the budget subcommittee to look at our substitute rate for teachers, we'd be happy to do that. But this was brought forward by Mr. Kilgore because he is having a difficult time getting substitute custodians.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, but through you, Madam Chair, to the acting superintendent. Mr. Powers, are we able to fill every substitute teacher role that needs to be filled every day?
We are not.
Paying?
We are not.
Okay, so I would actually ask the budget committee to look at that and see if we can, afford it within what we have. But right now, I can't vote. And I love custodians. They're some of my favorite people. I used to be one in the summer, and I worked with all those guys back in the day. But it just doesn't send the right message to me. I apologize.
And if I could just add, if I'm not mistaken, and I think this probably should have come out, the substitute custodians only get paid for a maximum of 4 hours, if I'm not mistaken, from Mr. Kilroy.
4 hours.
4 hours. So they don't actually work the full day because those hours, the remaining hours, are split between the additional staff that stayed late on overtime to pick up that extra slack. So
Thank you. Yes, I did forget to mention that. Thank you.
I would just echo Mr. Fitzgibbons. I am concerned if we're going to pay substitute custodian $20 an hour and we aren't paying our substitute teachers that rate too, where there have been challenges in the schools with recruiting substitute teachers and kids still this year, because I've had one, that are sitting in the auditorium at the high school.
So, Madam Chair, the Budget Subcommittee can add that to our agenda for
Absolutely.
next month.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Mr. D'Amarino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How did the Budget Subcommittee arrive at a $5 increase?
That was after some discussion with Mr. Kilgore and wanting to make sure that we had the ability to attract reliable folks. At $15 an hour, you can go to Dunkin' Donuts, frankly, and Walmart. And we want to be able to attract folks that will be reliable and actually want to come to work. Mr. Kilgore is working with Mr. Bewley from BASE to post the position at the university in the hopes that we may be able to get some university students to fill the position. Again, it's a 4-hour role. So that's sort of...
Did any consideration be given to looking at what other school districts are doing, what they're paying their substitutes?
Mr. Kilgore tells me no.
So just, there's a labor shortage everywhere.
Correct.
All right. And to kind of go off of what you're saying about going to Walmart or, you're finding positions for those even higher than $20 now. So, I think personally, I can't fully favor this. I have friends that are custodians, and I know they're busting their hump, and I, appreciate that. However, if we're looking to get reliable candidates, I think a little bit more research into what is appropriate, what is going to attract these candidates should go into it than just, I think $5 will do. Also, has any consideration gone to any other substitutes aside from teachers, which were brought up? What about secretaries? So we're having trouble filling those positions, and the other substitute positions in the district.
We actually have 2 substitute secretary positions that are currently being onboarded. We did interview for those positions. We were fortunate enough to have 2 candidates emerge. So that is one area that we feel confident in. Obviously we always struggle with finding substitute PEs if we have those needs or other positions. And as I stated, and as you just mentioned, we still have open positions, so we can't necessarily fill them all. But we have looked at other areas in terms of substitutes.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
could just say something. I know we're all trying to do right by every substitute line that we have. Right now before us is the substitute line to clean our bathrooms at night, to make sure our rooms are sanitized, to make sure puke is cleaned up off the floor. That's what we're talking about now. It's not to say that these other substitute lines aren't important. They are important. Every single one of them is important. But to hold up a vote because we're not doing all of them at the same time, I don't know. I think those other ones will come, but this is the one that's before us right now. This is the one that we have to deal with right now. This is the one we have a shortage, when we have complaints from parents that ceiling tiles are falling off of schools and things need to get fixed. Things need to get cleaned. A lot of times we rely on our custodians to do a lot of the small stuff. So, I just wanted to bring that up. I understand all the other line items are important. I'm not saying they aren't. But right now, we're trying to deal with custodians to keep our rooms clean and sanitized for our kids. If we're going to say no to that, then I don't know what else we're going to say no to that, too. That's all.
Mrs. Yes. I would just say I understand where Mr. Murray is coming from. I would just say, though, we do have a budget, and to approve one and not the others, and not have all of them come here as a package, and to look at them across the board would be my recommendation and inclination, is to look at all of them across the board, because to look at all of them across the board.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion to approve rate increase for custodian substitutes from $15 per hour to $20 per hour. Motion was made by Mr. Dolan, second by Mr. Marrero. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Aye.
Can we have a roll call vote?
Sure. We can do that.
Thank you.
I have my chart. Okay, Mrs. Conrad Labarento?
No.
Mr. D'Amarino?
No.
Mr. Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgibbons?
No.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mrs. Martelli?
No.
Mr. Marrera?
Yes.
And the chair votes aye. We have 4 in favor, 4 opposed, so the motion
So fails.
dies.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I suggest we look at everything and bring it back next month to make it all work? And ask the budget committee to do that? Because I think that, as Mr. Marrera said, that's all very important. But to me, it's about priorities, right? And priorities are, to me, educating the students in the classroom is the most important thing we do. And then we need...
I disagree with that saying one section of our staff is more important than the other.
Okay.
I think they're all important. We could not function without one. I do agree we should review the substitute line in hopes that we pull them, but I think voting no on custodians because of one other group, we can review all of them, that's fine, but I don't want to pit one group against the other because they're all
Nor do I.
important.
So, Madam Chair, I'll make sure that's on our agenda for our November meeting.
Thank you.
And I'd ask Ms. Macedo and Mr. Powers to prep for that, if you could.
Thank you.
FY23,
Mr.
sorry.
Mr. Jones, I just have a question around that,
Sure.
or something for the budget committee to consider, and I've seen it in other districts, and I don't know where the COVID or the ESSER grant money is at. I know in other districts, I've seen they're using some of that ESSER money as bonus money to be able to recruit substitute teachers. Again, it's keeping kids in the classroom and teaching through COVID, so they have added, not per se, it's still an hourly, but a bonus on top with ESSER funds. So I would, again, whether we're going to do that or not, or whether we have money in the budget to permanently increase the rates, but it's something to think about as a temporary fix, not fix, but a temporary measure until we can really think about long-term funds.
Okay.
Thank you.
FY 2023 budget review. We continue to review the budget. As you all know, the budget was frozen on October 1st, and we are in a very good financial place at this time, and we'll continue to keep an eye on all of our line items. The funding for an intern staffing, the acting assistant superintendent. Mr. Powers was asked how the acting superintendent's salary was funded, and the dollar amount was determined. He explained that he took the annual rate of $150,000 divided by 226 workdays, which is the normal workday for an administrator, and came up with $663.72 as a daily pay rate. Therefore, Over the 8.5 weeks, the cost to the district would be approximately $30,531.12. Mr. Powers' rate of increased compensation as acting as superintendent is $2,465 for the 8.5 weeks, for a total impact of $32,996.12. FY24 budget timeline and preliminary discussion. As a copy of the timeline was distributed for review, FY24 budget creation is well underway. Ms. Macedo is leading the charge, with the school principals and administrative staff sending their staffing requirements and compiling their needs for the 2023-2024 school year. Mr. Powers and Ms. Macedo will prioritize the submissions into our preliminary budget that the superintendent will present in January. Mr. Marrera did advocate that we fund middle school sports as we move through the budget process. Other business not anticipated at the time the posting was made. Mr. Kilgore mentioned that several halogen lights at the multipurpose field at the high school are out and that need to be replaced at a cost of $12,000. That's equipment, labor, and supplies. Mr. Kilgore is evaluating the cost and feasibility of replacing all of those bulbs to LED, more energy efficient bulbs, along with looking at grants, and we'll come back to the committee next month with some more information on that. We did vote, as we voted tonight under the consent agenda, we were awarded the Bridging Lives grant. So we are excited and thankful for that. And then finally, as Mr. Powers said, Ms. Macedo informed us of her retirement. And if I could say, if we had to accept that, I would hope we would not accept that. Kathy,
Decline.
we reject your retirement. On a personal note, having been on the committee for just about 8 years now, working with you has been an experience I am thankful for. You have brought this district into financial strength that I don't think we had ever before. Your collaborative work with the towns is phenomenal. So we will miss you greatly. But thank you. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. Next on the agenda, we have Policy Subcommittee report. Mrs. King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On Monday, October 17th, the Policy Subcommittee met. In attendance were Mrs. Conrad Labarento, Mrs. Martelli, our reporting secretary, Mrs. McDougall, and myself. The Policy Subcommittee reviewed the following policies as we've been going through the policy manual to update everything. The first policy is policy GCJ, professional teacher status. This policy had minor housekeeping edits to change in the second paragraph on appointment to for non-renewal. In the third paragraph, we revised school system to school district, and then we added proposed school committee approval date of October 19th. A lot of these had to do with professional teacher status, etc. So I did have Mr. Powers review them to make sure we're aligning with the CBA as well. Accordingly, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve housekeeping edits to policy GCJ, professional teacher status.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. King, second by Mr. Fitzgibbons. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The next is policy GCIA, philosophy of staff development. This policy had minor housekeeping edits as follows to update the policy and to align with the CBA. In the first paragraph, the words "to participate in" will be added after "will be encouraged." In the second bullet point, the sentence will be revised at the end, drawing personnel from within and outside the school district as determined by the superintendent or his or her designee. The fourth bullet point will be removed to align with the CBA. The fifth bullet point will be renumbered and add at the end as per the CBA. The date of the proposed school committee approval date of October 19th, 2022 would be added. Accordingly, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve housekeeping edits to policy GCIA, Philosophy of Staff Development.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. King and a second by Mr. Fitzgibbons. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The next policy on the agenda is policy GCO, Evaluation of Professional Staff. This policy was voted on a motion to table by the subcommittee, as Mr. Powers had advised that this policy should be reviewed more extensively to align with the CBA and the actual current DESE guidelines. So this was not reviewed yet, and this would be put on to the next policy meeting after I speak with Mr. Powers and bring it to the subcommittee again. The next one is policy GCQD, resignation of professional staff members. This policy was reviewed and had minor housekeeping edits and to align with the CBA. In the second and third paragraphs, after superintendent or his or her designee was added. At the third paragraph, it was revised to state for a period of time as per the CBA after the submission of the resignation. The date of the proposed school committee approval date of October 19th, 2022 was added. Accordingly, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve housekeeping edits to policy GCQD, resignation of professional staff members.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. King, second by Mr. Fitzgibbons. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The next policy is policy GCQF, suspension and dismissal of professional staff members. This policy was reviewed and had minor housekeeping edits were made to add and or his designee after superintendent throughout. The date of the proposed school committee approval of October 19th, 2022 was added. Accordingly, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve housekeeping edits to policy GCQF, suspension and dismissal of professional staff members.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. King, second by Mr. Fitzgibbons. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
At the end of that policy meeting, we scheduled our next policy subcommittee meeting for Monday, November 7th at 6:30. Lastly, Madam Chair, it was on the policy agenda that was revised as an action item regarding policy IJOA, field trips. Although this was posted to the policy agenda for Monday, I was away and did not have time to review this policy, so it's not discussed at policy on Monday evening. However, this was posted to this current agenda, and I would like to bring this policy forward for discussion with a minor housekeeping edit. It is policy IJOA, field trips. It is my understanding this was brought to the attention of the school committee as Bridgewater Middle School is scheduled for a fall field trip with a cost of $35. However, as the policy currently reads right now, the policy is that field trips are to be under $30. It is my further understanding we actually have had numerous other field trips above this cost and may continue to see this with the rise of prices currently. This policy has also not been reviewed since 2011. It was also indicated that Bridgewater Middle School is not able to subsidize the cost of $5 extra right now as they are a newly formed PTO, but it is their intention to cover any cost of students that find the price a hardship. So the minor housekeeping edit is to amend paragraph 3, the second bullet, to add after per student does not exceed $30 or by approval by the superintendent or his or her designee with notification to the school committee. This would allow them some discretion for a field trip that costs more, but would also have the superintendent to be able to approve that and to notify us of this occurrence. The date of the proposed school committee approval would be added as October 19th, and also after superintendent throughout would be or his or her designee. Accordingly, Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve housekeeping edits to policy IJOA, field trips.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. King, second by Mr. Fitzgibbon. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. King. Next on our agenda, we have Long Range Planning Subcommittee, Mrs. Conrad Labarento.
I think the plan is to review the results of the student exit survey.
It is
Oh, we
everyone's
can't.
drive, but let me see if I can get this going again. Can't
Well,
hurt.
if everybody has a copy of the survey in their drive, if we want to start, we'll start to review it. The student withdrawal survey. Oh, it's on. It's.
I think it just shuts down. Right, you would have to refresh it.
Okay.
Excuse me.
I am reviewing the student withdrawal survey that we, the school committee, along with the district, in collaboration with the district, developed. These are the results of the student withdrawal survey from July 1st, 21 through June 30th, 22. There were 367 surveys that were sent out to valid email addresses, and 299 were delivered, and 60 individuals responded. Of that 367, there could have been multiple students and one family that were part of the response. So, if that makes sense to people. Because you could have had a family of that had 3 children that moved out of district, so that family would have received 3 different surveys on their children. The first is the breakdown of the 60 respondents of what town they were from. So you can see almost 51% Bridgewater, 48% and Raynham. The next question was the reasons for withdrawal, and people were able to select multiple answers here. Sorry, I'm just having a hard time reading it from over here. So you can seeking other opportunities, permanently with relocating. There wasn't one item. There were 3 that were higher, but there wasn't one particular item that stood out here, and there were multiple, kind of just one item selected at the with 1.7%. What grade did your student initially enroll in the district? You can see a majority here, 73% of students enrolled in the kindergarten, during kindergarten, and then a hodgepodge of other grades. The next slide is what grade did your student withdraw, or was the last day attending in the district? And the 48% is 8th grade, so majority of students are withdrawing after or during the 8th grade. And the rest are a hodgepodge, again, across all grades. And which this, I would assume, we were all had the inclination that majority of the withdrawals were coming after the 8th grade. Again, whether that be private high school, vocational high school, wherever that may be. And just remember, this is only 60 respondents out of the amount of students. 60 people were out of the surveys that were sent out. The next is this students or families could have selected multiple schools. So these are the schools that the child attended while they were enrolled in the Bridgewater Raynham Regional School District. So On the Bridgewater side, you could have had a student at Williams and at Mitchell and at the high school, and if they would draw in 10th grade, they would have then selected potentially all 3 of those schools. And on the Raynham side, Merrill, Liberty, and RMS. What type of school will your student attend? You can see the highest number was vocational or agricultural, followed by private, and then public new district. I will say with this is we realized, in the future, after we have some baseline and after a few years, there are some opportunities for us to change some of these questions and get some more pinpoint data, but this is the data that we have based on the survey that was sent out. We did drill down and ask a question if children or students were attending a vocational agricultural school, what were the top 3? And this is based on when a student withdrew from the district and they were going to that vocational school, what they thought their interests were. Because if you know the vocational, what happens, students really don't pick their vocation or trade until the 10th grade, so there's still some wiggle room. So you can see here, design and visual communications, computer and networking were some of the highest, or electrical technology. This was to help us gauge, are there any of some of these programs that maybe we would think about at the high school in the future, because some of these programs we would have the ability to do at the high school, such as business or design and visual communication, where electrical or HVAC, that's not probably realistic at the high school, but some of these other ones may be realistic to implement some of these. This was at the elementary school level. How satisfied were you with the elementary school level? As you can see, 76% checked they were satisfied or more with the elementary school level, and I will say that 76%, 8% did not answered NA. So you were not required to say you're either 1 dissatisfied or 5. You could have put an NA. So that was 76% out of the total 100, even though 8% said NA. The middle school satisfaction, you'll see that 60% said they were satisfied or above. Again, and 15% said NA, so potentially you're looking at potential 75% said they were. Again, they may not have had a student at the middle school level either, but they marked NA. At the high school, you'll see a lot of NAs, and we are assuming because kids never got to the high school level, especially when we see the amount of students that withdraw after 8th grade. So 66% of families that fill this out actually put an NA for satisfaction, assuming that they had no kind of involvement at the high school. Overall quality of instruction, again, it's about, I didn't figure it in my head, but 71%, I believe, was satisfied or more with instruction in VR. The next was student interaction with the school staff, and this was very high across, again, that parents were satisfied with the student interaction with school staff. So it speaks highly of our school staff, The next was parent interaction with school staff. Again, 78% said they were satisfied or more with the parent interaction with school staff. Again, and there still is a small percent that marked NA. And in our conversation was that, parents, again, may not, I don't want to say care about the measure, but that's what they were not focused on, and they could have just put NA. They were not required to kind of rate 1 through 5. The next was interaction with school administrators, again, principals, special ed administrators, superintendent, assistant superintendent. And you'll see the rating of this is kind of all over the place. It's all over the place in this one. It's not kind of bell curve or all in a kind of satisfactory or above. The next was the quality of special education. This was a conversation that we had. Again, there was numerous respondents that actually talked about the quality of special education. I think that's something in the future is to drill down on, because this doesn't represent the actual amount of percent of kids that are enrolled in special education in the district. the amount of special kids enrolled in special education in the district. I forget what the percent was, but it's a smaller percent compared to the amount of that respond to this. Overall school climate, again, a range of numbers here, whether they were dissatisfied, satisfied, all the way up to very satisfied. Student social interaction with other students, again, very high ratings of whether they're satisfied or above. Extracurricular programs, again, you'll see the ratings here. Again, there may be some students on these next ones that maybe the student wasn't involved with some of these programs, and the parent said NA. The next was an arts program. Again, you'll see what that percentage across. We had a large percent that checked NA, which is interesting if you look at this one, and I believe in the next one is the music program. Many more people responded to the music program, and our conversation was there's been a lot of work around the music program over the district throughout the past few years, so there's more kids that potentially were exposed to the music program, or parents had thoughts about that music program. Athletic program, again, you see there's still 40% that said NA. And overall experience within the district, about 62% said that they were overall satisfied or above with their overall experience within the district. And the next was really thinking about what student school life, what was important to you as a parent. Parents were able to choose multiple items here. It was not one. Select only once, there were multiple items. Again, the highest being the academic program offerings was the highest rated item of what was important to a parent around their student school life. And the next, there were comments, and these are just a few of the comments that we wanted to bring up. They're kind of in two columns here. They were both very positive and glowing comments, and there were also comments that were concerning comments. The first was, I would love if BR took away Math Plus in the middle school and offered foreign language rather than waiting for high school. Class sizes are too big at high school too. One of the biggest reasons I pulled my daughter, I have a big class size, need to stop taking school choice, we were big enough. The other was unable to deal with my daughter's anxiety. You can read the rest of that. My daughter's been a year in private school, and she's been thriving with anxiety and all. The other, again, comments, BR is the best school district. Great support from guidance staff. Ms. C generally cared for the emotional health of my daughter. There were multiple comments. These were just a few of the comments that were came out of the report. So that is the end of the report. Have questions? Again, I will say, I think we've realized the need to tweak some of the questions, but we want to wait a year or two before we have some more data to start tweaking, because once you tweak it, then your responses aren't comparing apples to apples.
Hey, are there any questions from the committee?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I could, did the results, are they what we expected? Is it what the long-range planning committee was looking for?
People can speak up. I think it is. I think we expected a high rate of 8th graders to be leaving the district. The question was why they were leaving the district, so I think we've got a little bit of that. I think in the future we would like to drill down or ask some different questions to really get some more of that detailed information. And I also think in the future is drilling down in the data, and we have it, but it needs to be manually kind of separated, is, you know, again, the withdrawals, what percent were from Marina, and what percent were from Bridgewater, and some of that satisfaction piece from the different towns, and looking at that piece of it.
Mr. Fitzgibbons?
I'd just add the one slide that kind of jumped out to me that seemed to have a pretty
and this is in response to Mr. Nolan's question, that seemed to have a pretty obvious story behind it once you looked at it, was dealing with the administration. It was kind of bipolar and then a bunch in the middle, which to me indicates there are those folks who, you know, wanted to get something from administration who did not get it, and those who did get it, and those who did get whatever they needed or wanted were very, you know, gave them very good rating, and those who didn't obviously gave the administrators a bad rating, and that's what I would have expected going in. And then there was a bunch in the middle, like, I don't know. I mean, they were nice enough to me, you know. So that was the only one that was like, you know, a little bit off of either like a bell curve or shifted to the right where people were satisfied. And so I just wanted to throw that explanation out as when I looked at it, I was like, no, that makes sense.
And I would add to Mr. Fitzgibbon, as we all know, is people respond to surveys usually for a reason. And so there is bias when you respond to surveys and who is responding and how the survey is sent out. And this is a new process for us as the district. So I think just keeping that in mind, especially with our first year of data, is there is some bias of this, of who responded to the survey.
My only comment was the overall climate of schools, and I think that people have different understandings of what a climate of the school is, and even when you look at it, some people look at it as the educational environment at school and whether it creates a positive setting for learning, academic achievement, and student growth. Can also be looked at as engagement, strong, caring relationships among students, staff, and families, safety, physical and emotional safety from violence, bullying, and harassment, and environment, clear, consistent, and fair disciplinary policies. So given the other information, this did not really represent the other information that was given, and it kind of went all over the place. And I think a lot of that had to do with there isn't a common vocabulary or understanding of what climate of schools is. So perhaps moving forward, we could write more of a definition or break it down even more, because I don't think it's a fair representation. I don't think people totally understood what school climate is.
And Madam Chair, I agree with you. I think moving forward, again, wanting to compare apples to apples, my suggestion that we give a definition of school climate and not change the questions at this point, but give a definition of school climate. So again, there's going to be some bias then of how people respond next year when they have a definition, but at least we have similar questions. But yes, that makes sense.
Mrs. King.
Looking at this, like thinking long-term range planning-wise, the one I'm interested in is where we kind of picked, why are you leaving the district? We're not necessarily going to compete with all the kids going to vocational necessarily, but all those kids that chose other academic opportunities, I'd really like to drill down into that, like what specifically were you looking for academically that we don't have, you know? So if we can figure out how to maybe narrow down those questions.
Yeah, I think that's very relevant, Mrs. King, and trying to figure out, I think in the future, I think long-range planning or folks need to figure out is at what point do we want to change these questions to kind of narrow down on some of that. How much baseline data do we need for comparison, and at what point do we want to change some of the data? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think the other item for long-range planning was the capital improvement and technology plans. At this point, we are still reviewing those and getting some more information, and the plan is to bring them back and present them, bring those plans to the November meeting to present those plans.
Madam Chair, if I may, on those plans, the budget subcommittee needs those in November, no later, please. We need to include that data in the 24 budget.
Okay, when is that budget?
November.
You need it November.
Just.
I think you're meeting the 14th, right?
We are.
And we are meeting the 7th.
Yes.
So we will
Okay.
have them. There was
Perfect.
one item, Mr. Dolan, I will just say so budget can be aware, is in the IT, the technology plans, Chromebooks were built into the capital plan, and we really suggested to Mr. Shantz that needs to come out. It's an operational cost and should be in the budget, not a capital improvement plan.
I think originally it was a capital improvement plan
Yes.
before
Correct.
we were able to get them
One-on-one.
with all the grants and everything that came through. But I think the original goal is to get them into the
Operational budget, not the capital.
I'm just thinking because we're looking more like it's a utility, it's an ongoing cost.
Correct.
And I believe that goes with what Mr. Shantz had said originally is, every 3 years they have to cycle out. So then now it becomes maintenance instead of...
Right, but that makes it a capital item, that right there. Because capital means that you're purchasing something or doing something and the value of it decreases over a period of time. So a Chromebook by default is capital because after 5 years, it stops getting updates. Therefore, frankly, it's a paperweight after 5 years because it doesn't take updates from Google anymore.
So I think there's a conversation we need to have because I think Mr. Shantz actually said there's a % of Chromebooks that we bought every single year just because of the turnover in them. So is this an operational cost or is this a capital item?
We'll take a look as a budget subcommittee. We'll take a look.
I just want to weigh in. I believe when we talked about going 1-to-1, we talked about it becoming like the gas and oil bill and the light bill we have to pay every year. We're going to have to pay a Chromebook bill every year. Now, whether or not it's in the capital line or in the budget line, it doesn't matter to me, but we just know we're going to have to replace a third every year and just let it roll through. So it's not something like big and new. It's just ongoing. And
right.
That's what needs to happen.
Yes.
So
yep.
However it goes through, it has to.
Okay. We will have that. We meet the 7th, so you will have those budgets for the 14th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your report, Mrs. Conrad Barbarento. Next on the agenda is Safety and Security Report, Mr. Marrera and Mr. Powers.
Madam Chair, I know we are approaching 3.5 hours, so I'll be very quick with my 18-page report, which is only a half a page. So, Madam Chair, the Safety and Security Group had its first meeting of the school year on September 30th, 2022 at 9:30 a.m. Those present included administrators from all schools, facilities, central office, police, and fire from both towns, to include the SROs and Lucini Bus Company. This was the first in-person meeting for the group since the start of COVID, so it was great to see everyone back together again. The group discussed the Raptor system, which manages the entries to the school by the visitors, which is up and running in all schools and at the main office, at central office as well. For those unfamiliar with the Raptor system eliminates uncertainty and helps schools know precisely who's coming onto campus by scanning their IDs. Each visitor's information is screened against the sex offender registry and custom databases, including those with custody orders or banned status from schools. The system instantly alerts school officials if a visitor is flagged as a security risk. So I just want to just touch on that, because I know a lot of the newer parents in the district may not know what that system is. As for fire and ALICE drills, they've been going on throughout the month of September, will continue into October. For those new parents unfamiliar with ALICE, it stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. ALICE is currently used over 5,500 schools. Some ALICE training is done by teachers at the classroom level, where students have discussions and they talk through scenarios. The group also discussed the new Mitchell School safety features and how some of those could be brought to other locations, but depending on the age of the building, not all those features will be able to carry over. Upcoming proposed projects and proposals are the RMS entryway, trying to secure that a little bit more, additional key fobs for staff instead of actual keys, and there was a proposed conversation about proposed increase in SROs and staffing at more of the schools. In closing, the group was reminded by myself not to be discussing specific security procedures at each facilities, and that as they should not be disclosed to the public because we don't want to jeopardize the safety and well-being of our students and staff. If anybody has any questions about specific security measures at any facility, to please contact your principal or the superintendent's office. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marrera.
Did I miss anything, Mr. Powers?
You covered everything, Mr. Marrero. No, you.
Okay.
My notes match exactly.
Okay, perfect. And thank you, Mr. Marrera, Mr. Powers, Mr. Kilgore, along with Lucini, SROs, and the police and fire departments in Bridgewater and Rainham for all you do and continue to do to keep our school communities safe. Next on the agenda is new business, and it's yes.
Sorry, I have a question about security.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead.
You know I'm going to have a question. I just have a question, maybe Superintendent Powers can answer. As I know, the governor's budget included substantial money for increased security in schools, and I just didn't know if we have any idea of what those funds that we may be getting or not getting, if we have any understanding. And I know there's been conversations of what that can go to or not go to, if we have any understanding around that.
So I do know that some of that money can be used for facility upgrades. That's something that Mr. Kilgore and I have looked into. We're also trying to see if we can possibly include some of our technology upgrades, upgrades to camera systems, things like that. Unfortunately, we haven't necessarily got any direct correspondence about what our allocation would be if we applied. So something we'll continue to explore.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is new business. Action item, approval of payroll warrants. I will entertain a motion to approve payroll warrants dated August 25th, 2022, September 8th, 2022, September 22nd, 2022, and October 6th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Marrera, second by Mrs. King. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and we have 2 abstentions.
Kathy's locked out on that note.
She's locked out now.
I'm trying to get back in through it once.
Okay, next on the agenda is an action item also to reschedule January 18th, 2023 school committee meeting to the following Wednesday, January 25th, 2023. The reason we need to reschedule this meeting is due to a professional development around diversity, equity, and inclusion that will take place for the school committee on January 18th, 2023. This was the only time in January that the presenter was available.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Fitzgibbons, second by Mr. Marrera. All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the approval of BMS team building field trip. Mr. Powers?
I believe this is actually the action item that you
Okay.
covered earlier. Yes.
All right. So I will entertain a motion to approve the BMS team building field trip at the cost of $35. Oh, we already did that. We don't have to do that.
Well, we approved the policy,
No,
so
because we
can do
approved
it.
the policy. Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Powers
you.
can do it now.
Mr.
Right.
Powers, you can do that now. Okay, it's all on you. Right, next on the agenda is public comment. The school committee welcomes information, concerns, and opinions from those attending the meeting in order to give those wishing an opportunity to speak, ensure compliance with open meeting law and other legal obligations, and avoid disruption of the meeting. The committee will not engage with the speaker or with one another in deliberation on comments as they are presented during comment periods. At its discretion, the committee may schedule issues raised by a speaker for deliberation at a future meeting. If you would like a personal response, please email the committee or Mr. Powers directly following the meeting. The chair will now open public comment for a period of 12 minutes for policy BEDH and would ask anyone who wishes to speak to please approach the podium, provide your name and address, and respectfully ask that you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. When your 3 minutes are up and you still have not finished, I will ask that you submit your thoughts or script to our recording secretary, Mrs. McDougall, and she will distribute it to the committee for our review. We will open public comment at 9:39. Mr. Moore.
Great. Thank you to the school committee. Eric Moore, 1121 Vernon Street in Bridgewater. I do hold other positions in Bridgewater, but today I'm just speaking as an individual and as a parent of children in the district. So today we saw some troubling scores, right? The scores indicated a material decline in academic performance over the past 3 years across almost all aspects of MCAS testing. I think we also heard that this is the last year of a 5-year student success plan. So 5-year student success plan culminating in what could probably be the worst MCAS scores the district has seen. And I know you didn't present it, but if you look at our cohort, we are among the bottom of that as well. So there are other schools in the same time period that saw different trends than we saw. And I raise that not to cause drama, or I think whatever the other comment was. I raise it because it's a hard problem. We have great teachers in this district. We have probably one of the most involved towns, I think, in this area. But we have real challenges to solve. And the way that you solve them isn't to look at the scores and rip them up and throw them in the trash. It's to look at the scores and say, is this okay? And if it isn't, figure out what is and say, what do we need to do to make next year's scores better, right? So I know I'm probably coming up against my time, but I really just have 2 questions. If these aren't the right metrics, what are? What does the school committee use to say that this year is better than last year? That's the first question. And then the second question is the student success plan actually working? Right? Because having one isn't enough. Showing, that someone recognized us, that's great. I know we're putting in the effort. The real question is, did it work? And if it isn't working, and we're about to start another one, the question is, why didn't the first one work? And what can we do better to make the next one more effective? And so those are really my two questions. If this isn't the right set of metrics, and I honestly don't know if it is, this is your domain. Just maybe at a future meeting you guys could talk about what does good look like to this committee. And then the second thing is, what is our plan to make it good, to hit whatever metric we're trying to hit? So those are my 2 thoughts. I do appreciate the effort everyone's putting into this. I know this is a hard problem for our school district, for our community and our town, and I know all of you are trying to do the right thing to get the scores where they need to be. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, we will close public comment at 9:42. Announcements, does anyone have any announcements from the committee? Okay, first of all, the Bridgewater-Rainham Regional School District will be hosting a discrimination protocol focus group put on by Ms. Barrios, Coordinator of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And that will be held on Wednesday, October 26th from 6 to 7 p.m. via Zoom, and on Tuesday, November 8th from 7 to 8 p.m. on Zoom. That has, flyers will be going home with students if they have not already, and we would encourage people to participate in these focus groups and share your thoughts and hopes and what this protocol will look like and how we can communicate with all the community members. We also have the Center of Advancement of STEM Education, or CASE, invites you to an open lab night 2022 at an event for the entire community, especially K through 12 students. Open lab night features STEM activities and demonstrations, and this event is free and open to the public. Registration is required, and if you go on to the BSU website and look up Open Lab Night, You will get the registration form. It does take place on Wednesday, November 9th, 5 to 8 p.m. at the Dana Moeller Ferrier Science and Mathematics Center. To register, I said that. Please note that BSU requires participants to wear masks in educational spaces, classrooms, and labs, and all participants in a group must follow these guidelines. Our next school committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, November 16th, 2022, in the library of the Rainham Middle School. This concludes
Madam Chair, if I may. I'd like to just,
you may not.
Sorry, I am. Just to put out there again about MCAS. And to address.
Madam Chair, can I just make a point of order here? We say we're not going to engage. It seems like Mr. Nolan's about to engage on a comment.
No, I'm not.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important that we continue the work that Mr. Powers laid out. I think it's important that we look at our children holistically and not just based on one grade and one test. So I just leave that there. Thank you, Madam.
Mrs. King?
I've got one other announcement. Mrs. Martelli and I will be attending the Mass Association of School Committee Conference November 2nd through the 4th in Hyannis. There's numerous workshops and trainings we'll be attending that week. So we'll report out on that one after for the November meeting.
Okay, thank you. And thank you both for attending that. Mr. Diamarino?
The Friends of BR Athletics will be holding a meeting next Monday at 7:30 in the cafeteria. It's the first live meeting since COVID, so just thought I would put that out there as well.
Thanks. Okay, I will entertain
So
a motion
moved.
to... Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Marrero, second by Mr. Dolan.
No, that was 10.
Oh, Mr. Fitzgibbon, sorry.
That's okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.